Hello and welcome to Total Health with Dr. Nick, where my purpose is to inspire, empower, and motivate you to live longer, healthier, and more abundant lives. In today's video, I've got a great one for you because so many of you out there are struggling with anxiety or depression. This is absolutely debilitating. And you know, if you're struggling and suffering with it, you know exactly what I'm referring to. 46 million of you out there, just in America alone, are struggling with this, and only 43% ever seek help. That's not even half of you out there. So there's so many of you out that are struggling, looking for solutions, not knowing where to turn. In fact, many times all you're doing is turning to dangerous medications. Now, I know sometimes your doctors think that's the best solution, but we're going to show you, make sure you watch to the end, the solution that we use in our office that's holistic, natural, and the latest technology to be able to solve the problem of anxiety and depression naturally. So let's go ahead and get started. And guys, before we do, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you click that little bell notification so you get notified anytime I put a video out. So let's dive on in. Depression and anxiety. Well, statistically, like I said, statistically, this will rob you of your life, and you know what I'm talking about. You guys are going through this. You see how it's affecting your life. You don't have a life. Many of you are kept in your room. You don't go out. You don't socialize. You've lost all your friends. Well, the truth of the matter is that 33% of you will never, ever finish high school. That's what depression does, to the point where you don't even want to finish school. 28% abuse drugs or alcohol, probably because you're looking for some kind of solution, some kind of Band-Aid just to medicate the problem away. 6 times divorce or separation than just the average public. 3 times the risk of obesity or anorexia. 2 to 4 times more auto accidents. I mean, when your mind is not there, when your mind is on other things and you're focused on somewhere else, you're not going to see what you're doing. Your risk of being seriously injured in an accident is going to go through the roof. 3 to 5 times more ER visits, job failures, and incarceration. So this is something that, once again, if you don't get a handle on this, if you don't get this, you're not going to get your life back. So like I said, watch to the very end, because we're going to show you the latest technology that we use in our office to absolutely beat this problem. And we have a very, very high success rate with this. In fact, watch to the end too, because I'm going to show you how you can take advantage of this technology that we do in our office. A lot of times you're looking at different medications for solutions. So for example, for anxiety, you're looking at Klonopin, Xanax, you're looking at Valium, Prozac, Adderall, Vyvanse, Ritalin. All these different medications are what you're using as a Band-Aid, unfortunately. And I'm just going to be straight with you. You know me. You've watched my videos before. I deal straight from the hip. These are not fixing the underlying cause. All they're doing is medicating and Band-Aiding the problem away. Wouldn't you want to get to the underlying cause and find out why? It's not your fault, but why your brain's not working properly, why you're suffering and struggling with this. Some of the common side effects of these drugs can be lethal. Things like respiratory depression, coma, death. I mean, you're taking things to try to get your life back. Instead, these can actually take your life. Seizures, tachycardia, depression, impaired coordination, libido changes, bradycardia, cardiovascular collapse. So, guys, when I say that these medications are not just dangerous, they can literally be lethal and life-threatening. One of the many reasons why you should be looking for a more natural solution. Well, the antidepressants they're not better either. You have things like Effexor, Lexapro, Paxil, Wellbutrin, Zoloft, just to name a few. Here's the problem with many of these types of medications. You're taking these because you're depressed. You want to feel better. The problem is they cause something called emotional blunting, which means they shut your feelings down. It's almost like a curtain comes over you to where you're not even feeling anything anymore at all. The number one side effect of these medications is suicide or homicidal thoughts. Can you imagine? You're depressed, trying to get better, trying to get your life back, but yet at the same time, these are causing you to actually want to kill yourself or even harm someone else. So, like I said, anxiety, headaches, suicidal thoughts or homicidal thoughts, insomnia, seizures, and not only that, you're taking it for depression, it could actually exacerbate or increase your depression. So these drugs really aren't fixing anything. All these drugs are doing is simply masking the problem and never getting to the root cause, which we're going to talk about at the end of the video. The biggest problem, too, I see with these medications is they do carry a warning. They carry something called a black box warning, which means the FDA Food and Drug Administration is saying that these drugs are so dangerous that they actually can cause, like I said before, suicide, homicidal thoughts, depression, not just any depression, severe depression, abuse, abnormal behavior, and psychotic episodes. So, like I said, guys, these are not the answer. I know you're taking it because maybe that's what your doctor recommended or a family member, but please watch to the end because we're going to talk about better strategies to actually fix this problem naturally. How would you like to break free? Finally break free of the bondage of being depressed or having anxiety. Finally get your life back to where you want to enjoy life again. You want to be with your family, your friends, going on trips, taking cruises and doing the things you want to do. I mean, doesn't that sound great? But so many of you can't do that based on what you're doing. And once again, if you're taking the medications, a lot of times you still have the feelings, they're still there, but they're causing emotional blunting to where you're basically being shut off from them. So here's what we do. In our office, we recognize the fact that the brain functions on 4 main frequencies. Okay, the 4 main frequencies start off at lower gears and go to higher gears. So think of like the gears in your car or gears on a bicycle. You have first gear, which you go very quickly. You can spin as you're going up a hill, to the fastest gears to where you're either on a highway or going on a straightaway where you're getting your bicycle or your car going quicker and quicker. That's the same thing in your brain. Your brain has different gears. The lower gears is when your brain's asleep. The faster gears is when you're listening alertly. So hopefully right now I'm not putting you to sleep, and right now you're listening alertly and your brain is firing on all cylinders. So how that looks is this. When you're in the lowest frequency, that's called delta. Delta is the slowest, and that's when your brain's asleep. So when you're in REM sleep and you're out cold, that's when your brain is in delta frequency. The next frequency up is called theta. Theta is when, have you ever been woken up by a loved one or a family member and said, hey, Bill, Mary, come on, get off the couch. Let's go to sleep. Go to your room. Let's go to sleep. Get in bed. And you're kind of walking up the stairs groggy and you're awake enough not to fall on your face, but you're not too awake that you'll remember it the next day. Well, that's theta. The next one up is alpha. Alpha is kind of like when you're just chilling out, relaxing, just sitting around your house, enjoying time, maybe zoned out, not listening, and your wife is like, whoa, whoa, hey, Bill, yeah, oh, what? Oh, yeah, I just zoned out. I wasn't even listening. Or how many times do you pull in, like this has happened to me many times, you pull into your garage and you turn off your car and you think, I don't remember driving home. I don't remember any of this trip. I was zoned out the entire time. Well, that's alpha frequency. When you're in beta, well, in beta, you're the one that you're listening alertly, you're listening very, sharply. If you're in a business meeting or if you're in a class or a workshop, or like I said, watching this, you're going to be more beta frequency. Now, your brain should be able to switch gears at any time and go from frequency, 1 to frequency 4, depending on what you need to do. So if your brain is, once again, going to sleep at night, you want to down regulate. You want to go down to delta. If you're in a lecture or so on, you want to go back up. The problem occurs when your brain gets dysregulated. Research has shown over the past 40 years that abnormal brainwave activity is at the core of many childhood and adult disorders. Yes, brain-based disorders can come from dysregulated or abnormal brainwave patterns. We call that brainwave dysregulation. Brainwave dysregulation is thinking of it like your brain is shorting out. It's not in the right frequency at the right time. So, research shows that normal brainwave patterns may become disrupted, resulting in a dysregulated brain, causing neurological symptoms. Now, let's talk for a moment. How does your brainwaves become disrupted? Well, they become disrupted because of stress. However, there's 3 kinds of stress. You have physical, chemical, and emotional stress. Well, physical stress, that's pretty obvious. You could have a head trauma. You can slip, fall, hit your head maybe on the counter, maybe on a coffee table, maybe roller skating or rollerblading, or you fall off a swing set as a child. That's a physical stress to the body. Emotional stress can come in the form of a job loss, maybe a death in the family, a death of a pet, family member. Maybe you have to move and it was very disruptive. Maybe you had a history of childhood abuse. Those are emotional stresses. Chemical stresses come in the form of food colorings, dyes, additives, preservatives, artificial foods, packaged foods. Those different things are your types of chemical stresses. Now, when the brain becomes dysregulated due to these 3 stresses, it starts to give off different symptoms. Those look like this. When you have delta theta dysregulation, okay, abnormal delta theta brainwaves, you can have your classic ADD, ADHD. So if your child has that and it's the classic presentation of that, it's probably because they have delta theta dysregulation. You can have impulsivity. You can have a child that's distracted. It's like, squirrel, what was that? They're looking all over the place. easily distracted, excessive speech, disorganized, and hyper-emotional. If you have a child or yourself that is struggling with alpha wave dysregulation, you can have victim mentality, you can have depression, suicidal thoughts. All of our patients that come in that are typically suicidal or have depression, there's a really good chance, and if that's you, that you have alpha dysregulation. You tend to ruminate. You tend to just marinate in the negative. Why am I so stupid? I'll never amount to anything. I can't possibly succeed. I'm so fat. I'm so ugly. I'm so this. I'm so that. Well, first of all, I want to tell you that God didn't make junk. So don't think that about yourself. God made you perfectly. Okay? You just might have some brain waves that are dysregulated, but other than that, you are perfectly made by God. So when we see patients, and many times, like I said, if you're struggling with depression or even suicidal thoughts, which we see a lot of people with that and have had tremendous success with, they have a lot of alpha dysregulation. Now, the anxiety, that tends to come from beta dysregulation. So with beta dysregulation, you see your OCD patterns. You see people that tend to be restless. They worry a lot. They might even have panic attacks. Now, they could also have ADD-like symptoms. And what I mean by that is this. If you are under an acute stress, so say, for example, you're going down to the creek, you're hiking, you want to get some water, you're hot, you want to splash the water in your face, and all of a sudden you look up and you see a bear over your shoulder and he's about to take a swat at your head. And you know that's not going to be a good thing. Your body immediately goes into fight, flight, or freeze mode. Freeze is typically the number one thing. You typically freeze and you stand there and go, I don't know why I stood still, but you freeze. Now, what happens is blood tends to leave the frontal cortex part of your brain and goes to the limbic system, the back. That's the primitive part of your brain, which is all about reflex. That's going to get you ready to run or fight or freeze. So what happens is the blood leaves here. Now, all of a sudden, you're not making good choices anymore. Okay, immediately you're in reflex mode. You're not thinking, oh shoot, did I leave the campfire on? Or did I don't know if I closed the garage door. Honey, did we pay the electric bill? I don't know if I did that before we left town. You're not thinking about that at all. You're thinking about moving and running and getting away, climbing a tree or something. Well, the same thing happens when you have chronic stress. So you could have chronic stress caused by the anxiety. In that case, blood is leaving here to go here because you have that now chronic stress. And next thing you know, you're not making good decisions anymore. You might have a child that looks like they have ADD or ADHD. You may have a family member that's, struggling at work. They can't make the right decisions. They're not making good choices when it comes to job deals or things like that. You're thinking, I would have never done that typically in a business deal, or if you're a student taking a test, you're thinking, I knew the answers to that. I would never have made that choice on the test. What was I thinking about? That's because you have ADD-like symptoms that are brought about by high beta dysregulation. Once again, the one that typically causes anxiety. So the problem is, when people come in with these symptoms, you can't just base brain waves and knowing what's going on in the brain on symptomatology, or doctors where all they're doing is looking at observations. They're looking at, interviews and histories and things like that when they're in your consultation. They're not knowing exactly what's going on with your brain. There's no way to accurately know what's going on in someone's brain, whether it be an adult or child, unless you test. You have to test the brain. You have to know what's going on. You cannot base this on symptomatology, observation, or history. No doctor is going to get this in spending a few minutes with you or your child in their office. You have to test. Now, there's one gold standard that we use in our office to be able to tell exactly what's going on in the brain, and that's called the QEEG. The QEEG brain scan is a 12-point brain scan where we're looking at all the different sites on the brain, and we're checking them in all 4 frequencies. So when a patient comes in, they put a cap on, and the cap has sensors all around their brain, and it's measuring their brainwave activity both with their eyes closed and with their eyes open. And with that, we'll be able to determine exactly where there's brainwave dysregulation, if it's in the frontal part of their brain, the temporal, the parietal, or we call the occipital. Any parts of their brain, we will know exactly and precisely exactly what's going on and how dysregulated their brainwaves are, and in what areas and in what frequencies. Suzanne, when she came into our office, was 15 years old, and I'll never forget the day she came in because her mom was in tears in my office earlier that day. She said, I don't know what to do. My daughter, and while she's telling me this, tears are streaming down her face. She says, my daughter wants to kill herself. She wants to die. And I don't know what to do. I said, well, you need to get her in. We need to do a brain scan on her. QEEG brain scan, see exactly what's going on to know precisely what's going on with her brain, because I guarantee you she's got issues probably with alpha dysregulation, because I know that that's going to cause depression, victim mentality, self-deprecation, where she puts herself down. Now, they were going through a lot of different things. There was a divorce. She was getting bullied at school, but still, she wasn't coping and handling these situations like someone normally would. It was really affecting her a lot more because of the brainwave dysregulation. So what we look at here, when we see the brainwaves, what we typically want to see is that they're all green. We want to see a lot of green here. In the lower part, in the base of her skull, right here, in theta, there's a lot of low brainwave activity, and low brainwave activity shows up as blue and light blue. High brainwave activity shows up as yellow and red. Okay, green is normal. So we see a lot of low blue wave activity down here. That's indicative of short-term memory problems. So she was struggling in school. Not only that, where you see over here in beta dysregulation, we want to see beta where it's all red on one side and all blue on the other. We knew exactly when we saw all this blue and green here, where it should be all red, that she had a lot of anxiety. With that, we knew she was going to have a lot of problems once again in school. It was going to affect exactly how she was interpreting. Her brain was filtering all the different events of her life. Now, this was with her eyes closed. When she opened her eyes, things get dramatically different. When she opened her eyes, now it got even worse. We see here worry, anxiety, all in this area, right here. All this red where it should be green, all that red in the alpha frequency. Once again, I said it was going to be alpha dysregulation. There it is right there. The alpha frequency is showing all this worry, all this anxiety, and depression. So whenever you see all these colors here, anxiety, worry, depression, right there. Over here, we see reduced cognitive efficiency. That means her brain's not functioning at high levels like it should. It's actually functioning at lower levels. Over here, we see worry and anxiety again, because now it got worse. Remember I said this side of her brain should be all red. This side should be blue when we're in beta frequency. What we're seeing here is all this is almost all blue. When it's all blue like that, that's when she's got the anxiety and the worry. So between all this, the alpha and the beta here, she has the depression and the anxiety from those two alone. So she was a ticking time bomb. Unfortunately, the different events of her life, the getting bullied, the parents' divorce, being overweight and getting picked on, all led into this. And then it all started causing all kinds of brainwave dysregulation. Now, she could have medicated this problem, but it wasn't going to fix it. It wasn't going to fix the underlying cause of what's going on. Instead, she came into our office and we actually did a brain map on her. What we find is this. Once we figure out what areas of the brain have what we call brainwave dysregulation, then we start to train it. We start to train it back into the proper frequencies, and we'll show you in a moment how we do that. That's why you want to keep on watching. We're going to show you exactly what a training looks like. Based upon the principle that there is a normal pattern of brainwave activity and that the brain can actually be retrained to normalize the brainwaves, making them flexible and adaptable to situational needs. Once again, when the brainwaves are dysregulated, they're not adapting to the different situations in someone's life. So what normally wouldn't bother someone was pushing her over the edge and causing her to the point where she wanted to do harm to herself. And I'll tell you what, as a parent, I have 4 daughters. I couldn't imagine one of my daughters ever saying that they wanted to kill themselves. That would absolutely destroy me. So, what does this look like? Well, as you can see in the video here, this young girl is training. And so what she's doing right now, she's getting prepared, putting on her headphones because she's going to be listening to what's going on by the screen. The screen on the left is her watching a video or watching a movie or a show, whatever she likes to watch. So when patients come in, we like to have them watch whatever is important to them. So if it's to watch Netflix or something on YouTube, we have them do that. So she's watching the video while we're studying her brain waves. We're looking at her right and left brain waves, seeing how they're functioning. We're looking at her trend screen. We're looking at the numbers, making sure the numbers are checking out. We're looking at the different thresholds, making sure that her brain waves are in the right frequency at the right time. What you're going to notice, in fact, you probably have already noticed it, that something's happening with the screen that she's looking at. Well, one thing you notice is that it starts to go dim. And when the screen's going dim, it means that her brain waves were not in the right frequency. So we program into the computer the proper frequency that her brain needs to be in to be able to make the corrective changes. Now, when her brain's in the right frequency, the video plays properly, the sound is good, and the lighting is perfect. However, when her brain is in the wrong frequency, the video will start to go dim and the sound goes down depending on just how out of frequency she is. Now, what happens then? Well, her brain immediately tries to go back to correcting itself. In fact, what it ends up doing, it starts to correct itself based on what we call neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity means that the brain actually has the capacity and the ability to rewire itself. So because of the fact that she wants to watch this video, it's something that interests her, maybe it's a game she's playing or he's playing, when it's something they're interested in, they want to see it. The brain goes to work to rewire. It's almost like if there's a bridge out, you're going to try to find an alternate route. You're going to try to find another route in your car, and then once you figure out that that's a better route, you're going to go that way. Well, your brain's the same way. It starts to rewire, and when it rewires, the nerves refire. They're going to start to fire better, wire better, and actually communicate better. And when it does that, the brain is functioning at a much higher level, and we actually have corrected those dysregulated areas. And the great thing is it's permanent. It's a permanent change. So the human brain has the ability to reorganize by creating new neural pathways and neural connections. That's beautiful. That's how this works. That's the beautiful thing. We don't need drugs to do that. All drugs are doing is trying to artificially, chemically alter the brain. We're actually retraining the brain through something we call neurofeedback training to recreate new neural connections. And those neural connections, like I said, are permanent. So what did her results look like? Well, Suzanne immediately started noticing different levels in her anxiety. Her anxiety went down. Her frequency of suicidal thoughts just dropped. You can see right here, this is one of the things we do. We have something called a symptom tracker. So when patients come in, on a scale of 1 to 10, they rate their symptoms, 10 being bad, 1 or 0 being perfect. And in this case, you can see when she first came in, her suicidal thoughts and her levels of anxiety were way, way high up. Within about 5 sessions, they started literally dropping to the floor. In fact, her suicidal thoughts went down to nothing. So once again, her mom was really happy, as you could imagine. Things like her frequency of worry, yeah, she had some spikes here and there. Maybe she got picked on that day, but you can see it literally just went down through the floor. And one of the things her mom said to me was this. She said, you know what? She's coping with things a lot better. I find that when she's in school and she gets picked on, she doesn't call me up or text me 10 to 20 times a day, Mom, pick me up, get me out of school, get me out of here. She's handling things better. And isn't that exactly what you want? You're not going to remove all stresses from your life or your child's life, but what you're going to do is be able to cope with it and handle it a lot better. And why was she able to do that? Because her brain was working better. It wasn't because it was drugged, so where she artificially didn't feel her problems anymore. Because how many times do you hear this? Someone's on, and this has happened in my family, and it's happened with friends and people I know about. They're on an antidepressant. It causes them more depression, and because now they have that emotional blunting, next thing you know, they don't think anything about harming themselves, and unfortunately, it's usually lethal. So this system here that we're talking about, this technology, this actually rewires and corrects the brainwave dysregulation, correcting anxiety and depression without medication. It's so beautiful. Another thing we're tracking, her improvement in short-term memory. Her short-term memory had big issues before. Now she's doing better in school, which is a great side effect. If you want to talk about side effects, she didn't come in to get better grades in school, but she ended up getting better grades. Things like lack of concentration and lack of motivation. That's a big motivator sometimes. When people are not motivated, they don't have a purpose and a plan in life. They don't know what God chose them to do. So what ends up happening is, next thing you know, they're just floundering around in life, and that causes depression. But her lack of motivation, once again, went through the floor also. So lots of different things happened as a result of actually fixing the problem and not just medicating it. Well, you don't have to take my word for this. Look at what Harvard University said about this. Dr. Frank Duffy said this. Neurofeedback should play a major therapeutic role in many difficult areas. And in my opinion, if any medication had demonstrated such a wide spectrum of efficacy, it would be universally accepted and widely used. Hey guys, so the good news is that there's help. This is not by accident that you watched this video. It's not an accident this video was put in your path today. I'm a firm believer that God puts people together so that way you can get the help you need, so you do not need to struggle with anxiety or depression any longer. If you're interested, the good news is we can ship a system, one of these systems, anywhere in the world. So if you're interested about learning more about this life-changing technology, right below in the description is my email or my office number. Just give us a call, send us an email, and we'll get you the answers that you need. Anyway, guys, I love and appreciate you. This is Dr. Nick. Have a blessed day. I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye. Come here. It's my daughter.
Ciao.
See you guys. Bye-bye. That was cute.